The damage psychologically for my family can't be brought back.
I want people to know that we are working on this. It's not just sitting on a shelf somewhere.
Rachel was a very vivacious, not afraid to try new things kind of girl. She loved fashion, she loved her friends, and she loved life.
You just need the right piece of information, maybe to tie some things together. That has to be a pretty big weight on you. I personally think that this case will be solved eventually. I do think that eventually we'll have an answer.
I could go on with the truth, and whoever did it, maybe the truth and coming out would make a difference in their life.
Rachel Cooke's last run. Rachel Louise Cooke was 19 years old when she disappeared on Thursday, January 10, 2002. She had traveled from San Deigo to visit her parents in her hometown of Georgetown, Texas. She was last seen going for a jog in her parents' neighborhood. Rachel Louise Cooke was described as beautiful. She was 5 feet 2 inches tall, with hazel eyes, and had auburn streaks running through her blonde hair. People would say that she was a person that you loved to be around, with a free spirit who was full of life. She was vivacious and always open to trying new things. She had a great sense of humor and loved spending time with her friends and family. She loved shopping and had an innate sense of fashion and had dreams of making a career in the fashion industry. She also was an accomplished cross-country runner. Rachel was born on May 10, 1982, in Dallas, Texas, to Robert, a software engineer, and Janet, an art teacher. When she was very young, she moved with her family to Georgetown, Texas. She started running in elementary school and was faster than most of the other runners. Later, she joined the long-distance and cross-country teams. When Rachel was 18 years old, she competed in the Miss Georgetown contest. On January 10, 2002, 19-year-old Rachel was on winter vacation from her school at San Deigo Mesa College in San Diego, California. She was visiting her parents in the North Lake subdivision of Georgetown, Texas. She had extended her vacation to attend her cousin's wedding and had been driving her parents and her little sister Joanne crazy, asking them which outfit she should wear. Her boyfriend Greg had traveled with her, but by New Year's had already traveled back to California. According to Rachel's family, Greg seemed really nice and attentive, and the pair seemed really in love. Rachel had planned to move in with him and had said that he was the one. She also wanted to enroll in fashion design school once she returned from her vacation. That morning when Robert left for work, he was the first to leave the house, followed by Janet and Joanne, who told Rachel goodbye as she lay half asleep on the couch as they went to school around 8 a.m. It was about 9:15 a.m. when Rachel received a call from her boyfriend Greg. Rachel told him that she missed him and that she would call him back after she went on her morning run. Sadly, she would never make that call. Shortly after she got off the phone with her boyfriend, she put on her green sports bra that showed off her 2 heart-shaped cherries tattooed on her left shoulder. She also put on either gray shorts or sweatpants and grabbed her gray shirt that she tied around her waist. She then grabbed her bright yellow Sony Walkman portable radio cassette player with headphones and set out for her daily 4 to 6 mile run on the same route that she had always ran. She was last seen running in the direction of her parents' house between 11 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. near Nietzsche's Trail, which is just 100 to 200 yards from her family's residence. At 3 p.m., Robert returned home to take Rachel shopping. He couldn't find her. The way things were left in the house, it appeared she had never returned home from her run. Rachel had left her cell phone and her purse at the house. It was said that anyone who knew Rachel knew that she never would go anywhere without her makeup. A worried Robert called Rachel's childhood friend Shannon Leach and asked her if she talked to Rachel. Shannon said that she hadn't talked to Rachel, but they had plans to go out later. Robert told Shannon that Rachel had left all her belongings behind, and Shannon began to worry. Rachel's mother Janet called the restaurant Wildfire, where Rachel would work when she would come to town. They said they hadn't seen her, but she was to work that night. Her family thought that maybe she had gotten a ride to work from someone and had just forgotten her purse and phone. In the morning, when Rachel hadn't returned, her family called the restaurant again. They learned that there was a mix-up and that it was a different Rachel that had worked the previous night. Rachel's family went through all her clothes and found out that only her running clothes were missing, which further solidified their fears that Rachel had never returned from her run. Robert decided to go drive the route that she had always run, while Janet went and checked the hospital. There was no sign of Rachel, so they went to the sheriff's office to report her missing. Rachel's family said that they were told that Rachel probably had went to Mexico with her boyfriend and didn't tell anybody. Since it seemed like the authorities weren't going to do anything, Rachel's friends and family organized a search for her that Saturday, which was interrupted and stopped by an investigator. The sheriff's office had contacted Texas Ranger Matthew Lindman, and on January 13th, he was on the case. Lindman told Rachel's dad that he didn't think that Rachel had left on her own. An official search for her began that day. There were ATVs, helicopters, and EquuSearch that helped look for any signs of Rachel to no avail. After several days, authorities stopped their search for Rachel, while family and friends continued to search for her for a few more weeks. Several witnesses told authorities that two young males in white Camaros were circling the neighborhood the day Rachel disappeared. One of the reports was of a female jogger in Rachel's age range near the Camaro, while another report depicted of a woman struggling in the car. Several white Camaros were located and examined, but there was no evidence that Rachel had been in any of them. Two young men also came forward and admitted that they had ditched school that day and were driving around the neighborhood. They were also investigated, and there was no evidence found that tied them to Rachel's disappearance. There were also reports of cars that had been plunged into Lake Georgetown. All the cars were excavated from the waters, and they were determined to have been stolen before Rachel went missing and had nothing to do with her. Rachel's boyfriend had came back to help search for Rachel. He was ruled out early on as a suspect and also took and passed a lie detector test. Rachel's parents also volunteered to take lie detector tests. Janet passed. Robert failed one question on his test. The question was if he knew where Rachel was. Robert said he thinks he failed the test because he thinks he knows where Rachel is. He thinks she's in heaven. Rachel's sister Joanne was suspicious of Rachel's ex-boyfriend. She said that 2 days before Rachel disappeared, Rachel had told her that she saw the ex-boyfriend and that he had made a scene and had told Rachel that he couldn't live without her. Rachel's family and friends said that her past relationship with her ex-boyfriend had been volatile, and the ex had been very upset when she broke things off. After they had broken up, he had been drunk and came over pounding on the door. Rachel's mom Janet had to threaten to call the sheriff's department to get him to leave. The ex-boyfriend denied any involvement in Rachel's disappearance, and there was no proof either. 2 years later, there was a new sheriff, and he organized a Rachel Cooke task force, but didn't come up with much of anything. Fast forward to August of 2006, the task force had been disbanded, and Larry Hawkins was now in charge of Rachel's case. Convicted murderer Michael Keith Moore contacted investigators and said that he had murdered Rachel. Moore had spent nearly all of his adult life in prison. His father stated he began to get in trouble with the law at the age of 13, and many of his known offenses involved sexual misconduct and/or violence. At the time of his confession to murdering Rachel, he was serving 4 life sentences for the robbery and murder of a pregnant woman and her unborn child in a neighboring town. Hawkins and Linderman both interviewed Moore. Moore told them that he had attacked Rachel while she had been jogging, knocked her unconscious, drove her somewhere, and raped her. He then murdered her with a hammer and wrapped her body in a tarp, weighed it with rocks, and threw it into Matagorda Bay. Moore was out of prison at the time of Rachel's disappearance, and he lived not far from Rachel's parents' house. He was also said to have driven a white truck that had been seen in the area when Rachel disappeared. Divers searched Matagorda Bay and came up with nothing. In November of 2006, Moore agreed to plead guilty to Rachel's murder in exchange for a sentence of life in prison. But in court, Moore reneged and pled not guilty. He told the media he had been toying with authorities when he confessed to killing Rachel, and he got special treatment in prison in exchange for his cooperation. He stated he had nothing to do with her disappearance. Rachel's father, Robert, passed away on November 5, 2014. All Rachel's mother, Janet, wants is that before she dies to know what happened to her daughter, and if she is dead, to give her daughter a proper funeral. Rachel's sister, Joanne, is a social worker. Rachel's disappearance remains unsolved. If you have any information on Rachel's disappearance, please contact Williamson County Sheriff's Department at 512-943-1300. At the time of her disappearance, Rachel was a 19-year-old Caucasian female with blonde hair, with auburn streaks. She had hazel eyes, was 5 foot 2 inches tall, and between 110 and 120 pounds. She had 2 heart-shaped cherries tattooed on her left shoulder and a black star tattooed on her left foot near her pinky toe. Her ears were pierced multiple times, with one piercing in the upper cartilage, and her navel was also pierced. It is alleged she was last seen wearing a green sports bra, a gray shirt tied around her waist, gray shorts or sweatpants, and white Adidas sneakers. She was carrying a bright yellow Walkman portable radio cassette player with headphones.